was something going on. How
Yeah,
could you blame the daughter? She blamed me.
I agree with you, okay? Not only do I agree with you, a mother should never say that to her daughter, and none of this stuff should ever be on you whatsoever to resolve. But then the question would be is what steps was your father taking to resolve these issues? Because it seems like he still hasn't gotten a divorce. It seemed like he was reticent to move you guys out until, what, a business failed, until he got upset about things? What were the steps that he was taking to alleviate the suffering you had here that weren't directly self-serving to him?
Oh, when the restaurant failed, he went through sort of like he was considering suicide, frankly, because he felt like he had failed our family, and it was a very rough time for him. He kind of went through a depressive state.
I don't understand why the restaurant. Wait, real quick. I don't understand why the restaurant failing would leave him suicidal if you said he was also managing multiple rental properties at the time and had started and ended multiple other businesses before the restaurant.
He hadn't started, and the only things he had were the rental properties.
Oh, okay.
He had been a high school teacher before the restaurant.
Oh, okay. So if he was running these multiple rental properties, why would he be suicidal because the restaurant business fails?
Well, because it was kind of his baby, and he really wanted it to work, and he wanted us, to make money, and he invested a lot in it, and he was up, like, it was 24 hours a day with his fucking restaurant, and he really wanted to make it work. And he still had the rental properties, but, I think this happened in, like, 2000, the restaurant was from 2000, what was it, 2010 to 2015, something like that. So, I don't know what to say. It was a rough time in the market. The apartments weren't getting a lot of money. We were dumpster diving for a little while. It kind of got rough. And my mom actually said to him, like, yeah, I think, she said, like, I've considered you committing suicide for, like, insurance, whatever, life insurance, too. And he was like, wow, okay.
Did you hear her say that, or did he tell you she said that?
Well, he told me, but then she admitted it later. So, she admitted it herself.
Do you find it inappropriate that he confides so much in you about evil things about your mom?
Well, I mean, she's, no, because the thing is, like, when things get so crazy, I think he was trying to make me understand, like, she's got psychological issues. It's not, like, you don't have to feel guilty, Grace, because the thing is, like, I feel guilty all the time, and it's not because I'm a bad person. It's because, she had issues. So did he. He's admitted he was, like, weak, but, like, it was sort of a fucked up situation. And then, when he kind of tried to, he really did think he was married to my mom 5 years ago. He really did think, like, he was married to her and we were going to work it out. But he saw that she was kind of very cold to me, and he was like, okay, well, maybe we can work this out. And then she flipped the fuck out. I mean, she started treating me like I wasn't even her daughter. She really did. She really did.
Did she ever have any of these problems with any of the other kids?
Yeah, she has a very difficult relationship with my brother John, and my other siblings, they've kind of stayed out of it, and I totally understand that. I'm super sympathetic with them staying out of it as much as they can, but they all feel super, super alienated from her now, and, they're still sympathetic and they try to reach out to her, but they don't, they're alienated from my dad too, frankly. It's just sort of, he tries to, we try to hang out. They're alienated from me. I don't know, it's kind of a fucked situation. I'm not really trying to blame my mom as in, like, that it's her fault, but I do think, my dad did not have bad intentions coming into this. He thought we were gonna work something out with our family. He thought they were gonna be happy and be married, and then, she kind of flipped out, and then things got worse and worse, and he kept trying to say, like, hey, we can be a family, we can have cookouts, we can, relax, it's gonna be okay, and she just got worse and worse. She really did.
Do you think them ultimately breaking up was your fault?
My fault? No, of course not. Why would it be my fault?
Oh, I don't think it was. I'm just curious if you feel that way. What'd your dad tell you was the main reason why it didn't work out?
Well, he told me that, that their marriage never really, that they weren't married, that
they were married, right?
Yeah, that, they were gonna, I mean, they're gonna pursue an annulment. The thing is, the Catholic Church, it's a long
regardless
story. You have
of
to get a divorce
regardless
first,
of
and
any
then a whole
annulment, they
thing.
were married, right? We step outside of the kooky Catholic world, we come to the real world. They had 6 children, right? They were running a business together, shared houses and stuff. So it sounds like your parents were married. They shared life as husband and wife together, right?
Yeah, they were legally married and married in the eyes of the Catholic Church, but in order to be married, you have to have a certain level of maturity, and you know, I just don't. From what I've seen of what my mom does, I just don't think she has the level of maturity that's okay for her. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't think she knew what she was getting into.
Do you think your dad has that level of maturity to manage that relationship?
I think maybe he didn't quite know what he was getting into either, but like, he wanted to better himself, and she kind of, you know, didn't. She kind of hoped for a perfect marriage, and then when it started falling apart, she just kind of lost it. And I think he always did try to keep it together. So I think that's the difference. I think he was more mature than her, but I do think he was a weak person and she was a weak person when they got married. I think that's true.
Sure. So do you think he was the type of person that can keep that relationship working?
Do I think he is the type of person?
Do you think he's capable of doing it? Does he have the maturity to keep that relationship working?
With my mom?
Mm-hmm. Because you seem to be settling all the blame on her, when I can see firsthand, and I think everybody can, that he seems to have a lot of maturity problems as well, right?
I think he's a very mature person. He's very, 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 you know, emotionally understanding. He helps me, but he's firm when he needs to be, and I don't know, I think he's very mature. I think a lot of the pain he's been through has made him more mature.
How do you tell when your dad is helping you through an emotional problem that you have, and he's not just trying to reframe your emotions in ways that are beneficial to him?
Well, I mean, because they have the ring of truth. I don't know what to say. It's like when somebody tells you something and they're trying to manipulate you, I guess you could say I'm so brainwashed that I don't recognize it, but I mean, I know what truth sounds like, and he's caring but firm, and he always has been.
Yeah, but how do you know that? Well, for instance, like, do you have a lot of times? I can't answer this now because you're not going to answer. Jeez, it seems like you saddle a lot of blame on your mom when I think most people can see that your dad acts with a decent lack of maturity. Like, I don't think most parents would scream at their kids and say, I wanted to go kill my child or whatever. Not with any degree of seriousness, at least. And then the screaming matches that he's had with your brother are pretty extreme as well.
I mean, those screaming matches, you fail to understand. My brother was an adult at the time. My dad helped him to get his own apartment. And then you don't think my brother was, I love my brother very much, but you don't think he was just sitting there screaming at my dad on those calls? You think my dad comes off as the immature one?
Yeah, I mean, your brother is a kid, right?
Yeah, but my dad lets my brother talk, and then he says, "Can I please talk? Can I please talk?"
No, they
and
were screaming at each other.
Screaming.
So your dad was talking to a child, right? 18 years old as a child. Now your brother alluded.
No, it's not a child. That's an adult.
18 years old compared to a 40, 50-year-old person is absolutely a child. Okay.
It's a young adult.
I'm never going to get in a
child to spin it that way.
I'm not. I'm just saying it because
like he's abusing a
I'm
child.
not going to get in a screaming match with a 17 or 18-year-old about a living situation because then we're both children at that point. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, you don't respect adults. Okay, fine. Go ahead. What's next?
Your brother mentioned something about your dad saying something incorrect on the lease. What was that in reference to?
Yeah, the landlord wouldn't give my 18-year-old brother a place, so my dad co-signed for it, but he told my brother, it's your place, so that my brother would feel like, okay, it's my own place, I'm gonna pay my own rent. He didn't want my brother to be paying my dad rent. He wanted him to pay the landlord, and my dad would just co-sign so that he was responsible, but the landlord would trust him, so he wasn't trusting an 18-year-old boy. That's what he did. It was really fucking generous because he took all the responsibility of the apartment on himself, and he was trying to help my brother learn how to be responsible.
Yeah, but it sounds like your brother was saying your dad filled out something different on the lease that he wasn't aware of. He made an allusion to that, but it never got further explored in that conversation.
He wasn't aware of it, because if he had been aware of it, he would have said, oh, my dad's just running, it's my dad's apartment. And my dad really didn't want him to feel like that, but he knew my brother would have a hard time getting a nice place for the price he got it at as an 18-year-old male. So
so you're saying
shitty apartment.
So you're saying that your dad co-signed the lease but was but your brother was unaware of it.
Well, yes, essentially, yes.
Okay, you understand that to most people that sounds really bad, right?
No, I mean, from the way I've explained it, I'm saying his 18-year-old son, my brother John's been through a lot. He wanted him to have a nice place for himself.
Yeah, so why wouldn't he just say that? Why wouldn't he say, hey, let me help you co-sign a lease? How would your brother not know that there was a co-sign on that lease? When you go to fill out a lease in an apartment, they're going to ask both people to fill the lease out. Was your dad handling all the paperwork for him and then just co-signed and didn't tell him?
My dad worked something out with the landlord, okay? And the landlord was a really nice guy, and he said, okay, I'll let your 18-year-old kid live here, but you've got to be responsible and pay a little something up front. My dad said, okay.
Do you think that
You
this
want to
gave...
call that abuse? Go ahead. I call it being a generous dad.
Do you think that that gave your dad a little bit more control over that apartment? Like the ability to evict your brother? Or the ability to enter the premises whenever he wanted to unannounced?
Well, my brother knew my dad could enter the premises when he signed. That was part of the agreement. But, he couldn't evict him. He was legally allowed to be there. He never got evicted by my dad.
Okay, he might not have. Did your dad ever... Why did your dad ever enter the apartment? For what purposes?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's like, we're family, so my dad would go up there. I mean, he helped co-sign for the apartment, and he would, you know, I don't know, help him get going with stuff, talk with us. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, when you said go up there, is this just upstairs?
Well, yeah, my dad had an office downstairs. It was a half apartment, half, like, office space. So he got the apartment upstairs was open, and my brother turned 18, and my dad was like, okay, I'll get this place for him.
Gotcha. None of this sounds very generous at all. It sounds like a whole bunch of things, but generous isn't anywhere near the top of my head on what I would describe this as, but...
Okay, well... My dad's a good guy. Bye.
See you later.
What? No, oh, shit. Oh, what the f***? I almost climaxed. Unlucky.
Jesus. She's
Hey.
like mind right?
Oh my god, dude. First of all, I'll let that little bro moment slide. I know all you niggas caught onto it. I'm gonna let it slide, but what the f***? Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, do you really think that it's not generous? The 18-year-old with an apartment park thing. I could see how it's controlling as fuck. But at the same time, if the 18-year-old wanted to move out and 18 have the capability,
Yeah,
like,
so
to fucking
here's like
afford an apartment.
so here's like a trick, okay? I noticed this, all right? If I ever try to help somebody, okay? Generally, in order for it to be sincere help, if I try to help somebody, I'm trying to give them something that they can take on their own and then go out into the world and use in a way that's helpful for them, right? If you want to help somebody, that's what you do. If you're trying to control somebody, then what you do is you give them gifts that tie them back to you. That's like a really common strategy because what it does is it always lets you frame what you're doing through generosity, but it allows you to maintain a level of control over the other person. So if he truly is trying to get out into the world, he's looking for apartments, and all of a sudden dad comes by and says, hey, I've got a place for you. It works really well. I can co-sign. You're going to be upstairs, right? Is that really a generous gift, especially if the dad is entering whenever he wants? Does that feel like a generous gift to you?
So you think, because there were strings attached, it's not really a gift. It's like a Trojan horse. Yeah, I'm giving you this, but there's also a lot of other things that you have to do for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. Or it's a way. Hold on. Somebody real quick says they have a YouTube video of the dad invading the brother's space. One second.
I said, okay, fine. I don't care. You can come in my room if you want. And he came in my room. I started playing music to try to get him to leave. I was trying to de-escalate the situation. And he grabbed my speaker and smashed it on the wooden floor. And also, he threw a shoe at my kittens.
Yeah, okay. So this is exactly what I would have thought. Yeah. It basically it gives him more access to the sun. Yeah.
Okay, I see. I mean, it's kind of confusing because when she first came in here, her grievance with you was the fact that it turned something that she thought would be just a friendly conversation turned into an interrogation about the dynamic that they've had between each other.
Here's what I don't think that first of all, she's delivering her father's words to me, right? That's what she's bringing to me, really, right? He probably expressed some frustration. Number one. Number two, she knew it was going to be a confrontational conversation, but what she probably expected was they were going to come on and I was going to say, have you molested your daughter? Did you really spank her ass? And they've probably had these questions so many times they could run me through the hamster wheel on that until I'm like blue in the face and I'm completely out, because I'm not going to get them on like, did you fuck your daughter? They already know all the answers to that. But when it was a more drawn out conversation, the dad was getting really frustrated. Grace was probably getting upset seeing her dad being frustrated, and that's probably what kind of set them down this road. Like, I didn't know it was going to be so confrontational, but that's probably what happened. That's my guess.
I mean, yeah, we agreed on that being probably what happened, because the guy himself was like, dude, aren't you gonna ask me about my daughter?
Yeah, I think he did that twice. Yeah.
Yeah, he did that. He did that repeatedly. Like, aren't you gonna ask me that? Like, fucking ask me if I'm a fucking molester. Stop asking me all of these. Stop beating around the bush. I think he said that multiple times. Stop beating around the bush. Just say what you actually mean. So, do you think, but you know, in hindsight, do you think maybe you should have sprinkled in a couple of accusations to keep the conversation spicy enough for him not to fucking mauled and leave?
No, I didn't want to run down any of the explosive dialogue trees, because my guess is after that they would have lost total interest in the conversation. They probably thought that the whole conversation was me trying to set them up for that big question, but then if I would have asked any of the big questions, they probably would have been uninterested in answering, and then you would have been going back to glazing me on like the centrism shit or talking about debate platforms or whatever.
Or they would have gotten what they wanted, because they were hoping that, you know, Big Bad Destiny would start shitting on them on the thing that everybody else did, and they'd get a good YouTube video out of it, but you didn't give it to them, whilst also still making it incredibly uncomfortable, basically trying to figure out whether the dad is, you know, a PDF file and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, I could see why he got frustrated. I think it's very apparent.
Also, something that's very interesting, is so important in these situations to keep the timeline straight. When she's talking about like the failing business and everything, and her mom failing to live up to all of her standards or whatever, right? Keep in mind that when this was happening, what was she? She was like, what, ages 8 to 14? There's no way she would perceive any of this shit. All of these are things that her dad has told her continuously, and that's why I kept trying to push her for examples on what happened in the restaurant, because when she's saying like, oh, my mom caused the business to fail, what she's really saying is, my dad told me my mom caused the business to fail. And if the business did fail because the dad mismanaged it, which honestly probably sounds like what happened, right? He was the one that chose to do the business and the business failed, so it was probably mostly his fault. It's easy for him to shift all the blame onto the mom, tell Grace why it was the mom's fault, and now she's repeating all of those reasons back to me, right? But she wasn't old enough when she's 9 years old to know if her mom is failing at managing a restaurant, but she'll repeat it back to me like she was, because it was her dad's perspective at the time she's giving me, I think.
Don't you think that it's a mixture of both her father and her hating her mother for the way that she treated her, right? Because between the father and the mother, it seems to me like she believes that her father treated her a lot better than the mother did, right? So obviously she'd be much more biased towards the father, right? Don't you think that's probably like one of the biggest reasons as to why she's against the mother, even though she's acknowledged herself that her father was a weak man? She said it on multiple occasions. She probably has a lot more that she wants to say that she doesn't, just for the simple fact that she has a good relationship. I mean, you know, relatively, she has a good relationship with her father that she doesn't have with her mother, and she kind of hates her mother for yelling at her as a child, and she labels it as abusive. And by the way, you rightfully pointed out how ironic it was for her to label that as abusive, even though, you know, the whole Steven Crowder situation, she said it's not abusive, it's just words. But most of the abuse examples that she brought up with her mother was the fact that her mother was yelling at her and shit. So that was kind of interesting. But don't you think that's mainly it, right? That she just likes her father more because she feels like her mom, you know, wasn't on her side, whereas her father was on her side.
Yeah, her father
was a bit absent.
Yeah, but the problem is the way that her father. This is my personal philosophy. Okay, my relationship with my kid's mom was really bad pre him being born. Okay, we don't. It was really, really, really bad. But as a parent, in my mind, I think that the worst thing I consider this automatically abuse. I think the worst thing you can ever do, there's two horrible things. One is fighting in front of your kid. And when I say fighting, I don't mean like disagreeing about what restaurants to go to, but like having like serious relationship fights in front of your kid, I think is so horrible, number one. And then number two, the only thing that's worse than that is using your kid against the other parent. Anytime you ever, I don't think ever, you should never as a child hear one of your parents slander or badmouth the other parent to you. Anytime that's happening, that is one of the biggest red flags ever. when mom is saying, oh, you just don't understand, your dad he's a horrible guy and you're not old enough, or when your dad is saying shit like, yeah, your mom is she's a fucking lunatic, she's fucking crazy. Anytime shit like that starts happening, yeah, shit is going in a really, really, really bad direction. And I think her dad does that to her all the time. But her dad also, he kind of functions like a pimp, right? And that there are some psychological needs that she needs met because she's a girl. She's a little girl. She's still a little girl. She's 20 years old, right? But she has no validation, anything her entire life. Her dad probably gives her that in bits and pieces while using her to attack the mom. So he also has a lot of leeway with her as well, because if he's her only source of like psychological like well-being, right, he can also be abusive as fuck to her as well. And anytime he's mean to her, she's probably reframing it as though it's her fault. That's why he can say evil things to her like, oh, I wanted to kill her, and she's thinking like, well, yeah, I guess I did fuck up. Or when Crowder is mean to Hillary, she's thinking like, yeah, well, maybe Hillary's not doing her wifely duties. In her mind, she's probably thinking like, yeah, maybe I didn't do my daughterly duties, right? I think it all kind of like links together.
Okay, so I agree with you, but I want to know, do you think that confiding in his daughter about, you know, the very strained relationship that he had with her mother, his wife, do you think that that also counts as him, you know, pitting the daughter against the mother?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever. Well, no, hold on. I think that like once your kids are like adults and they've moved out, maybe you can have those conversations. So like if you've got like if your kid's like 25 or 30 and you're like, oh man, okay, let's talk a little bit. Like, yeah, dad drove me crazy, blah, blah, blah. There's a way that your relationship changes once you're out of the house and you come back and talk to your parents. You're more like friends, and it's a very obvious change, hopefully for most kids, where when you start talking to your parents, you're both adults now, and you could be a little bit more frank about like, what was dad like, or what was mom like with blah, blah, blah. But when your child is still very much your kid, your child, I don't think you can ever confide in your child about things like that. It's horrible to do, right? If anything, in my opinion, if anything, you should actually be reframing or lying about what the other parent said. Like if her mom really was saying it was your fault, Grace, that I'm breaking up with your dad because I think that he's getting closer than me, her dad should have lied to her. Her dad should have said, I don't think mom really thinks that. I think mom's having a lot of problems right now. This has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with the relationship between me and your mom, or stuff that your mom is dealing with. He shouldn't be feeding into that. That's insane to do.
So to you, there is no way that you could responsibly confide with your children about the relationship that you have with your wife. There is
I don't
no
think
way
so.
that you could ever.
Unless it's
okay.
No, yeah, because the problem is, in my opinion, this is just in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but in my opinion, children, parental relationships are probably built into us biologically to some extent. And when mom and dad aren't working, it's going to do a lot of really weird things to your mind, right? And the worse that dysfunction is, the more it's going to fuck with you, right? So if there is a breakdown between the parents, then like the best you can do as a parent to your child is like, hey, me and mom are having problems, or, you know, mom has issues and I have trouble dealing with things sometimes. That's the most you can ever explore there. You can't start confiding in your child about problems with your husband or wife. In my opinion, that is totally inappropriate and almost always abusive. Yeah, go. Sorry.
Confiding, no, you're okay. Confiding kind of insinuates that you're just there and it's like, oh my God, I'm so tired with your mother. Your mother does X, Y, and Z, and 1, 2, and 3. Let's say you just keep your children informed, and let's say that both parents do it, right? Let's say there's a scenario where both parents just inform their children, like, hey, this is what's going on between me and your father, X, Y, and Z, and 1, 2, and 3. So if you see things that may be slightly different than what you used to, it's probably for this reason. So it's not necessarily confiding, it's just keeping them in the loop of what's going on, and both parents are doing it. So if you, like, well, you know, go ahead. Yeah.
So these are just my personal feelings. So people might disagree with me. I don't think you should never burden your children with your problems, right? And you should never burden your children with your significant other problems. Even if mom and dad are going through tough shit, that's not your children's responsibility. You're not supposed to be there, like, telling them all these things going on with mom and dad, because children are going to think about it. They're going to overthink. They have less shit going on in their life so that they can sit there and stress about it. And children are like really receptive to those types of things too. So no, I don't think it's ever appropriate unless it gets to the point to where like mom or dad are being like committed to a psychiatric institution and you need to have a serious conversation. Otherwise, no, mom or dad, they're having problems, but we're doing our best to work things out. You never make your relationship problems the problems of your children. I don't think it's ever appropriate to do that. It's just, I can't, yeah. Go ahead. We can run through sample conversations if you want, but I just don't think it's ever appropriate. I think it's horrible.
No. Yeah. I agree. I just wanted to see where you're coming at it from. I do believe the exact same thing, and I do believe that parents shouldn't burden their children with their problems, because that really fucks with you as a child.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But would you say that her father did that a lot with her, whereas her mother was antagonistic with her, and that is why she is much more likely to be overly emotionally attached and easily mentally fucking just manipulated and brainwashed to just believe anything her father says, because he's the one that set his claws in early? Is that what you'd say? And her mother basically didn't have a chance.
Her mother her mother was probably genuinely neglectful / abusive. That's totally possible.
Based on what? It's okay. It's plausible, but at the same time, I mean, I know this is not your
because
fault,
I think that because my feeling is that the easiest way that you can get in on somebody, the easiest way you can dig your claws in on somebody, is if they have some sort of fundamental psychological need that's not being met. So if a child feels neglected, unheard, unloved, hated by a parent, if they have those feelings, that's the easiest time for you to sweep in and kind of sink your claws in, and then provide those satisfactions that they need, and then from there you build on the resentment with the other parent. But like if the mom had a really healthy relationship with the daughter, there's not room for the husband to come in and be like, hey, I think your mom's crazy, because she'll look at the husband and be like, what? Fuck you. Me and mom get along great. What do you mean? Right? There has to be some sort of issue there already, I think.
The way that she framed her relationship with her mother was that her mother started to think that there was some sort of affair going on between the father and the daughter, and she decided to blame the daughter for it. But she said that this happened later on, as like when she was 15, right?
Yeah,
did I get that right?
So that's her framing of it, but I don't have the mom here to have that conversation. So here's
no, I wasn't. Yeah, there's more to it, right?
So,
but she also spoke a lot about when she was like 8, 9, 10, 11, like all the way up to, so it seems like this whole idea of her mother, looking down on her or disliking her or not seeing her in a way that it befits, a mother treating her daughter, right? It seems to me like this happened way before her mother thought that she was sleeping with, her husband. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the thing is that so I view this situation really similar to Lav and Mr. Girl, right? So something that happened with Lav is Mr. Girl took her understanding of everything that had happened between us, and he went and retroactively refit a different understanding of our relationship. When me and Lav were hanging out and doing whatever, and she was coming on stream, I don't think Lav actually felt like I was abusive at all. But Mr. Girl was able to go back and rewrite that and make her feel that way, right? And now when she reframes it, I don't know how much she thinks she's like. She probably still actually she knows she's lying. But that was part of his trying to rewrite it. I think with Grace, it's probably the same thing, where the dad was probably the one getting her fixated on that idea of her mom wanting to or feeling like she was being replaced by her daughter. Her dad probably gave her that idea, and then Grace went back and she retroactively rewrote a lot of their relationship that way. That'd be my guess on that. And I think there's a lot of room there too for, this is where like recordings or verbiage would help too, because there are things that the mom could say that are understandable, and there are things the mom that could say are like totally like the mom was like, I think you're f***ing my husband, that would obviously be pretty f***ed up. But if the mom is saying things like, I think the relationship that you and your dad have are inappropriate, that could be true. But like Grace could think she's implying something, and her dad will say, oh, she thinks we're f***ing, and that might be why she thinks that, it's hard to say.
Exactly, because I was about to go down that road, right? The fact that the mother would even be slightly suspicious of the fact that her husband is sleeping with her daughter, doesn't that alone bring into question what sort of fucking relationship do these does the father and the daughter have, to where the wife, assuming that she wasn't fucking crazy since the get-go, would suddenly start saying, you're fucking sleeping with my husband, something's going on, this is weird, right?
Yeah.
Like that in itself needs to be brought into question, I believe.
Yeah. And the whole like him looking through her phone for shit and then him saying that him going through her phone was how he found out his daughter was being abused. None of that story makes sense at all. That's all like super wacky.
You didn't buy it.
No, I mean that just all of that sounds really wacky to me. And also him being incredibly cagey about admitting to how he got into her phone and everything, like they hadn't rehearsed that part of the story. Maybe they hadn't had anybody question them on that before. Like you could tell that Grace kind of jumped in to save him, to start volunteering all the information about how he got in and everything,
Is it that big of a deal, the fact that her father went through her phone?
No, this is so important, okay? It doesn't really matter sometimes what happens. What matters is why people choose to lie about things, right? That's the important thing, right? So like if I say like yesterday I went to a gas station, but instead if I didn't go to a gas station, I actually went to a restaurant, the fact that I went to a restaurant isn't really that big of a deal, but the fact that I would lie about going to a restaurant is a really big deal, right? So it's not really what people say, it's why they lie about things that kind of keys you in that something maybe that they don't want people to know about is going on, or something that he feels ashamed or that he feels like he shouldn't have done is going on. Yeah.
No, I totally see that. I totally see that. But why would you think he would lie about something as simple as going through his daughter's phone? Like, what's so malicious about the way that he figured out how to get into her phone? What could be so fucking crazy that he has to fucking come up with some lie that, you know, I don't know. I don't remember, like, X, Y, and Z, 1, 2, 3. Why would he lie about something like that?
There's a million reasons why. It could be that he was looking for inappropriate stuff. That's one thing. That's what he really wanted me to accuse him of. It could be that he regularly had access to her phone and he could monitor her communications because that's part of his control. So it let him know what she was talking to her friends about, or maybe helping her send messages to her mom, or find out what she was talking to other family members about. It's another form of like control, right? It's really important if you're trying to manipulate somebody that you have as much of them are like in your control as possible. Having external friends, this is another thing. I didn't get to this line of questioning, but like if her dad really loved her, my question for her was going to be, what has your dad done to kind of like help you build your life on your own? Why are you still living in the same house as him? Why are you guys building a YouTube channel together? Why hasn't he helped you find a place yet if he's got all these rental properties? Why isn't he helping you get a job or do anything? Why are you a smoker for 3 years at the age of 20 with no college education who dropped out of high school doing YouTube in a house with your dad? That doesn't make any sense unless he's trying to keep you close, right?
No, okay. Those are all great and all, but I would like you right now to try to attempt to draw the best case scenario as to like how their fucking relationship is, the father and the daughter. Like the worst case scenario, you could do that as well if you'd like to, but best case scenario, you being like super fucking mega good faith, nice, whatever, all that. How do you think their relationship is? It just like a person that's overly concerned with their daughter's well-being and safety?
Yeah, best
like...
case scenario is dad is just really immature and is fucked up in life and has had trouble. He's trying to protect his daughter, and the only way that he knows how, which is being an ultra helicopter parent, over controlling, and he's not like grown up enough to send his daughter out of the world, and he's genuinely concerned for her. Like that's like probably the best case rating, but that's a very, very, very slim, narrow reading, I think. And based on his eccentric behavior, the answers to his questions, how cagey he is when talking about these things, and all the things he's admitted to doing, I find it hard to believe. That's like a low probability event, I think.
Okay. Worst case scenario. What's the worst case?
I mean, worst case scenario is some sort of like ongoing sexual abuse or something, sexual plus physical abuse, which I don't think that's happening, but I mean, I can't really know that. I think the most likely worst case is just everything I've said so far. He's just like a really manipulative, abusive person. He keeps her close for a variety of reasons. He probably feels good having her close. It helps him bully the rest of the family. It gives him some control of his life because he's got control over another person. Yeah, I mean, it's always nice if you can like have a little minion that you kind of control for everything, right?
So your worst case scenario does not include sexual abuse whatsoever?
It could, but I don't have any evidence for that, so like why needless to speculate.
I mean, I guess that's fair. It's the way. I mean, it is the worst case scenario. So.
But he could also be using her too, for like to build his career as well, right? Like if he is genuinely trying to do something on YouTube, using his daughter as essentially a honeypot, which is I think what he did to me, and he probably does it to other people as well. It's probably like a good tactic for him, right?
Yeah, actually true. Yeah, I could see that as well. Interesting. I think you. Do you think you'll ever talk to him again? Because I think it might happen. I mean, if you're down for it, I think he'll always be down to talk to you, no matter like the fucking outburst that he had. I don't believe it. The
audience is too big. I think people were saying they were talking about canceling the debate tomorrow. I don't think so. The only way he would ever consider that is if I think he felt like his daughter was starting to believe me more than him, or there was any inkling of that. If that was the case, I think that he would try to separate us as much as possible, so he wouldn't go through that debate. But I think that the allure of my audience, especially when they've been kind of like trying to desperately get a lot of eyes on their stuff for a long time, I think that's too alluring for them to turn away from, for him to turn away from, because he's ultimately
I just talked to him. He's not going to cancel the debate.
Okay, I didn't think so.
So the conversation that I just had with him, it's like pretty obvious grooming to me. There's videos of him like on stream with her and another guy. He's like encouraging her to put on sexier clothes. He's encouraging her to dance provocatively for this guy. He's admitting to doing this so that he can get clout, so that he can get bigger and gain views off of it. He's like keeps every time I try to ask him about it, he keeps like downplaying it, like, oh, we're not allowed to have conversations about the birds and the bees. Like, I'm not allowed to think I have a beautiful daughter, and so I have to keep like bringing him back to like the conversation about grooming. And yeah, like overall, it seems fairly obvious from all of the all of the stuff that he's admitting to.
Yeah. So the things here, sorry, fuck, this is interesting. So one of the lines of questionings that I wanted to push them down, the challenging things here, one was, do you feel like you constantly have to cover for your father? And then the second question that I really wanted her to explore is, do you feel like you're uncomfortable and need to reframe those emotions often? The reason why I wanted to ask this second question is because a guess that I would have had for her was, there's a lot of times where you're really uncomfortable with the relationship you have with your father, but with his encouragement, you end up reframing a lot of things to either make it your fault or make you understand that even though you feel bad about it, you shouldn't feel bad about it. This is a question that I wanted to ask, and it seems like that's exactly what's playing out here in these chat logs. Damn it, I'm fucking things up with my dad. He said that we could maybe relax and watch some vids about the Steven Crowder situation and get to know the whole story more, but I do this thing where I pretend I'm afraid of him and I start choking on my words and stuff and acting skittish. It comes in waves, always worst in the mornings, even though this morning wasn't even that bad. I don't actively choose to pretend to be afraid of him, but I'm saying to myself the whole time I'm acting afraid, just calm down, just relax. This is a pattern from my mom. Remember, externalizing all the bad feelings onto the mom is a really important pattern for these two, right? He's your friend, he wants you to succeed, which is fucking true, I know it. She might quote unquote know it, but she doesn't feel that way. But whatever. I'm not sure what it means that sometimes I just can't relax. Maybe it's a bad habit that'll go away. I can't believe that it means I have to talk to my mother, but that's what I always come back to because she taught me to be afraid of him. Remember, externalizing the negative feelings or blame onto the mom always. I just get in a place mentally. My guess is going to be, I don't have her in here right now to ask, oh, this would have been another good challenging question, is when you guys have difficulties between the two of you, is it oftentimes framed as the mom is the cause of the problem? So for instance, they're fighting, she feels a different type of way about something and he's saying, listen, you're wrong. Does he ever say, listen, the only reason you feel this way is because your mom told you this thing about me, because your mom is making you feel that way, because your mom's thoughts are still in your head, right? I bet that comes up a lot in their fights. That'd be my guess. And I see it come up here. I just get into
on top of that, he seems to have this like stuff to hold over her head. So her boyfriend was in my chat earlier saying that he like sends her tens of thousands of dollars, that like he pushed her to break up with him recently because he kept saying that the dad was abusive. The brother was in my chat earlier apparently saying that he that they would like dip off to hotels for long periods of time. The brother tells stories, I think you might have seen this, where he's like got a broken leg and they would like pretend to bring him food, but like literally like hold it at arm's length until he did X, Y, and Z for them, or they supposedly like they said that they were going to call the cops on him when he punched the dad, and so they like tried to get him to agree to a list of things before they decided whether or not to call the cops. So like there's always this power game where they're trying to get people to do things with different with all sorts of different objects or different dynamics.
Yeah, probably, yeah. That's not surprising. None of that is surprising.
I mean, literally after you talked to Grace the other day, I had her on the show right after, because the way that she talks about Hillary sounds exactly like her dynamic with her mom. Like the way that she talks about just leaving is abusive. She says that her mom is abusive just because she left as well.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all. Yeah. I think I need to manage myself better. I think God is working mystical ways in my life. Why can't I just relax and do that? I just get in a place mentally where I can't calm down, and then I just keep getting more and more agitated, and even when I try to calm down, it just makes me more agitated that I'm not calm. Something to keep in mind is if you're ever around somebody where you feel like you're constantly on edge, or there's for some reason you just always feel uncomfortable, but it always comes back to being your fault, or you feel like, okay, this is why it's my fault, there's a really good chance that you're around a very manipulative person. It's very, very, very hard to understand that, but there are some situations, guys, I don't know how to convince you of this because it's really hard. If you're around somebody that's really good at being manipulative, you will never be able to intellectualize your way out of it, because they're probably really good at setting you up in ways where you can never fight back intellectually. But as humans, we generally have a pretty good feel when people are abusive or manipulative. We can feel it out a lot. If you find that you're fighting your gut, or if you want to be romantic, if you find that you're fighting your heart with your head constantly, chances are somebody is mind fucking you, and it's good to remove yourself from that situation. The only thing that can help you see when a situation like that is abusive is by putting time and space between it. So if you leave an area for 2 weeks and all of a sudden you find out, wow, all of the anxiety that I have seems to be gone. I seem to feel much happier on a day-to-day basis. I don't feel like I've got somebody breathing down my neck, or I've got somebody critiquing me all the time, or that I need to be on edge or defensive. If you're feeling those types of feelings when you put some space between you and somebody that might be an issue, then sometimes you can start looking back on those things and go, oh, maybe that behavior isn't normal. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have to feel constantly defensive. Oh, maybe it's not like my fault every time they have a problem, right? But that's a really, really, really difficult thing to do, and you'll never be able to do it intellectually. Like, you have to like rely on your gut a little bit for stuff like that. But yeah, that's a hard one, guys.
What was your conversation with Grace like?
Just her. I don't even know. Fuck, I'm fucking tired. I can't even summarize it. It's 3:50 a.m. People keep saying to talk to the brother. Yeah, I could, but I mean, at this point, I have a lot of puzzle pieces. I have a feeling that if I were to talk to the brother, I feel like he would agree with every single thing I'm saying. I think that he probably feels like he actually probably views Grace less favorably than I do. He probably thinks she's more evil and manipulative. He probably thinks that her and her dad are working together constantly to attack him and the rest of the family, or him and his mom. That'd be my guess. He probably doesn't like the mom very much either. But he probably feels like Grace is being super manipulated by the dad. That'd be my guess. If the brother wants to come on and chat at some point, or if the mom wants to come on, they could. But yeah, I'd be surprised if he said anything different than that, but yeah. Oof, holy shit, I'm tired.
Great take, Dr. Phil. Great take.
Yeah, true.
Go on. I bet they love this. I'm not gonna lie. Grace and her father, they fucking love this. Okay,
they'll love it. Yeah, they'll love it so long as the dad doesn't feel like he's ever losing his daughter to anything. But oftentimes, the thing that makes it so nice when you're a manipulator, the more control you have over somebody, is the more adversity that other person faces, the more likely they're going to look to you for comfort, right? Because anytime somebody tries to break up an unhealthy dynamic or point out that there's an abusive situation going on, he can always label that external person as a threat or as an abuser, and then he can say like, look, this guy's trying to break us up, these people are jealous of what we have, he doesn't understand our dynamic, this guy's like your mom, these people don't understand, blah blah blah, and they can actually like build a closer relationship doing it. So
well, she's a tough cookie too, because I had a long conversation with her about this a couple of days ago, and she's like very similar to him, where it's like she's putting on an act. Like you can see her switch, almost like she's switching characters from one moment to the next, where all of a sudden she's like smiling at you and trying to be like very flirtatious with you, and she plays the same like Mott and Bailey game where she's trying to convince you of some like very random thing that has nothing to do with what you're actually talking about, but pretends as though it relates somehow. She is just so I can't tell if she's like so brainwashed or if she's actually like completely in on it.
I think there's two things happening with people like this. One is there is probably a significant amount of cognitive dissonance that's being introduced to her life constantly when she has these conversations, because there's a lot of claims being made by people that, one, she probably thinks I'm decently intelligent, I'm not a total fucking retard, and two, just the sheer amount of outside people that are probably saying things like, hey, this looks uncomfortable, this looks abusive, you're probably not happy, blah blah blah. You have to resolve that cognitive dissonance, right? That people can't live with dissonance in their heads, right? And part of the ways that she probably tries to do this is when it sounds like she's convincing you of random things, they're probably things in her own life, and she desperately has to have those things in place, otherwise like her entire life will fall apart. Like if she's the one that's like arguing on some esoteric topic about how something is or isn't abuse, it's probably because it's something that her dad does to her pretty frequently, and it can't be abuse, because if it is, her entire life collapses, right? Remember, her dad is probably one of the sole sources of validation or good psychological feelings that she gets, and if she realizes that that was fake or tries to undermine it, like her whole world collapses, you know?
Yeah, she kept the other day she was talking to her a boyfriend at the time, where she keeps telling him that he needs to learn how to put her in check, that she gets out of control sometimes, and he needs to learn how to control her, and he needs to, you know, have a better strong hand and all sorts of stuff like that. And then the dad eventually pushed him out, and he says that it's because he's like holding tens of thousands of dollars over her head, but I don't know.
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna do this real quick. I don't know how much time I have patience I have this. Okay, Scrabble, what's going on real quick? Give us your 2 cents.
Oh, right. Hi. Can you let me mute this to you? We can do this later if you're tired, because you do look fucking exhausted.
Well, just give me your 2 cents. Go for it.
Alright. From what I can tell, this is not really about views or money. It's mostly a sort of like public masturbation thing that's going on with the dad, where he's engaged in a long act of self-desecration, and the fact that he has a beautiful daughter that he can publicly pimp out to predators or weird men online is something he gets off on. The views and the money are secondary. And because that's how she's been taught to value herself, she is playing into that more and more as time goes on. Now, if she engages with you over a long period, there's a good chance that you'll probably end up trying, converting her mind a little bit. But the thing is, the father will be watching for it. And at that point, 2 things can happen. Either he thinks that he can successfully honeypot you using her into, continuing this weird public fetish he's got going on. Or if he thinks you might have a chance of taking her away from him, he's going to do something drastic. I think there's maybe like a 1% chance that he'll go as extreme as killing her. 1% chance.
Okay.
1% chance is about 10,000 times higher than it should be.
Wait, Destiny, don't reply. Mods, ban everybody that said Apu stalking. Ban everybody that said not Raj again. These niggas are fucking fucked up, okay? You niggas call me gorilla and monkey, but I will not stand for racism against my wonderful Indian brothers. You're the number one
Parantos,
tier
I love
5.
you.
I love you too. Listen, but my love for you is kind of waiting since you're also being called the number 1 tier 5 guy. Like, are you the king of the tier 5s?
That's for Steven to decide.
I think there might be some truth to what you're saying. It's not enough information. The dad does seem to want some level of publicity, though. I don't think it's just about picking his daughter up, because he tries to make his YouTube channel work. He tries to do debates. He tries to have like a YouTube presence. It doesn't look like he's just trying to pimp out the daughter.
Yeah, but all of that is instrumental. The thing that he's engaged in primarily is an extended act of self-desecration. It's like essentially what cuckolds do, but instead of doing it in private, he's doing it in public. And
Maybe.
what I'm worried about is that, okay, here's where I'm personally worried about a little. I don't know if I want to say this. I don't know if you want me to say this public. You might want to remain this private. You want to
say it, please.
He's gonna say his worry is that I'm gonna knock her up, and now I'm gonna be baby trapped by a crazy family. That's his worry. That's what he wants to say.
Nice one, say it! Say it, go ahead.
If you somehow successfully manage to convert Grace away from him, he's going to take it personally. He's going to come after you, and when he realizes he can't attack you or hurt you directly, he's going to come after the ones you love. There's 2 people that become targets.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Ooh, Dan and the sponsors?
Probably
is that
Nathan and Melina's probably thinking of it. Okay, I'll keep all this in mind. All right.
And when I'm saying, finally, when this happens, it won't be planned, it won't be smart, it'll be dumb, and it'll be opportunistic.
What are you? How could you possibly be awake right now? What are you doing in here, Muda?
So yeah.
I just woke up, bro.
Bro, I'm on the darker side of YouTube's like lore shit right now. Okay, I don't know why you would even join this at this degen fuck hour.
I don't know what are you talking about? I'm not in the stream right now.
We're in trailer trash drama.
It's just I can't even give you like a short version of what's going on. I wish I could, but it's just like so. Have you ever heard of the? You haven't even heard of these people. I know you haven't, but have you ever heard of the Thorpes?
Okay.
Thorpes? What?
Thorpe family. Okay, yeah.
Thorpe family. Hold on, let me Google
No,
this.
I don't even think it's people have many views. It's just like a.
Link him the 2-hour documentary. Let him watch it right now since he just woke up. That's a good
Sure,
TLDR.
Jesus, yeah, but also
2-hour documentary. Sure.
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. I'm fucking tired and dying, and this is I'm sorry. If we ever talk about video, I can try to get you with this, but holy shit.
Wait,
right.
I did want to ask, were you the one who briefly dragged me in yesterday for 5 seconds and kicked me out?
I don't remember.
'Cause I
Probably,
was-
by the way.
I was suddenly on the call for 5 seconds, and then I said, like, "Are you for real right now?" And then 5 seconds later, I was out. At any rate, I think that was probably for the best because I would have lost my shit at Grace, and then I
Based.
don't think this conversation that you had with her this night would have happened.
Jesus.
Listen, honestly, I think Grace is correct. I think you guys are just overreacting.
Es gibt nichts Besseres in der Stadt. Auf den Inseln findet ihr nichts Besseres.
Meine Waren sind immer verfügbar.
Euch erwartet eine Leckerei. Lebt wohl.